I'm so excited that you took the time to join us on the next episode of Beyond the Culture. This is the show where we embrace change and challenge cultural norms and ideals. I'm your host, Dr. David M. Walker. Welcome back to another episode of Beyond the Culture. Before we go on our interview, I want you to subscribe to the show so you'll be notified when a new episode is uploaded. Then, if you enjoy the show and you enjoy the content, I want you to hit the share button so your friends will know that the show is on. Lastly, leave a comment and let me know what you think about the show and how we can make it better for you. Now let's get into the conversation. My guest today is Mr. Alex Molden. Alex is a former National Football League player. He was drafted in the first round and he was the 11th pick overall of the 1996 NFL Draft. Alex played 8 seasons in the league with the Saints, the Chargers, and the Lions, battling some of the best athletes on earth. I'm glad to have Alex on the show today because he knows a thing or two about change, culture, influence, and how to navigate the pitfall of your identity intertwined with your platform and ability. Alex is now a personal development leadership speaker and coach. He's the author of the ultimate playbook for high achievement, 11 Keys for Success in Sport and Life. Alex is the host of the highly successful podcast, The Shark Effect. I'm glad to have Alex on the show today. So listen, I want you to stay where you are and let's get ready to go beyond the culture. Molden. Alex, how you feeling today?
Man, I feel phenomenal, man. Thank you for that wonderful intro. I can tell you did your homework.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
My wife was at the game with our 2 youngest children.
Okay.
So she was at the game. I stayed back to, man the fort. So me and my wife, we have 8 children. 3 of them are out the house.
Wow.
3 of them are out the house. Number 2, Elijah, he plays for the Tennessee Titans. And so that was, I kind of like being at home and being able to watch them. Of course, I would love to be there and, support them and, kind of feel that energy and whatnot. But it's like, for me, playing at that level, it's like, man, even though I'm like almost 20 years removed from the game, being that close to the sidelines and the feelings and stuff, it hits different. Right. You know what I'm saying? So I kind of like staying at home and watching it, from the comfort of my house. But my wife, she loves going to all the games. She's a mom, so she, if something happened to her baby, she wants to be right there.
Yeah. So you mentioned your son Elijah. He was drafted by the Tennessee Titans. I think it was the 3rd round. It says he was the 100th pick overall. And so I also read that you guys are a football family. Obviously, because you got you and your son, and I think you may have another son that's playing collegiate ball out in Western Oregon, I believe.
Yeah. He graduated 2 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
So here's the question: when I'm asking about a football family, obviously you guys love football. So did the game of football begin with you? Is there a history? Does it go back to your father, your grandfather? How did you have that love of football, and where did it come from?
Well, I would love to say that, my dad passed it down and whatnot. That's not the case. We didn't watch it growing up. We didn't watch college. We didn't watch pro. We didn't really watch sports. So I ended up learning and falling in love with the game. Shoot, and I was kind of like a late bloomer. Like other guys were playing football in 5th, 6th grade. I didn't play until the 8th grade. And my knowledge of the game was very basic level. I love to watch it. Once I started to kind of understand it, I started to watch it more and more. And truth be told, I learned it at the foundational level. I learned it by reading in the encyclopedia.
Okay.
So, because I was going out there with the fellas and they're playing football and they know all the positions and what their responsibilities are and all that. And I had no clue. I didn't know who Walter Payton was. I didn't know Terry Bradshaw or none of these dudes. Right. And so I ended up, I was frustrated. So I was like, okay, let me look in encyclopedias, just like doing a book report back in the day. I looked in encyclopedia under F and looked up football. And it's like, oh, okay. So I started to learn the different positions, what the responsibilities are learning at a very foundational level.
Mm-hmm.
And then from there, just kind of, I was a very good listener.
Okay.
Very good listener. And another thing is I didn't let my ego get in the way, because, during different drills, where there's different camps that I went to, or at my high school, or that 8th grade year, is I was never that guy who ran to the front. We say, okay, let's get 2 lines. I wasn't that guy to run up to the front of the line to try to be a leader.
Okay.
I knew what I lacked, and that was experience. So I figured early on that if I sit in the back and I watch, and I listened, and I learned both from the verbal cues of the coach, but also watching the intensity, all that stuff. If I've learned what the coach is saying, and then watching the guys who do it right and who do it wrong, by the time it's my turn, I should be able to do it perfectly.
Mm.
That was a key. I'm telling you, that was a key to my success.
Okay.
Was the ability to pick up, grasp information, process it quickly, and then spit it out.
You said that football, you had to learn the game. It wasn't something that you did. You didn't play sport. You learned the game. But at some point, your athletic ability started to develop. For you, obviously, you went to the University of Oregon, and college athlete. You're an Oregon Hall of Famer. So your talent and your ability rose to the level where now you have a realistic chance to become an NFL football player. So I want to ask you, what was that like, becoming an NFL player, and when did you know you really had a chance to make it?
Great question. To be honest, like when I was coming up the ranks at U of O, I wanted to be a 4-year starter. I wanted to start as a freshman, and that opportunity came to me, and it just so happened that at the end of the season, my freshman year, I ended up tearing my knee up. I had ACL, MCL surgery.
Okay.
And so that right there was a moment of like doubt that creeped into my mind, that I'm not only going to not have a chance to play in the NFL, I might not be that same caliber of athlete ever again. And so the next year I ended up coming back. After 9 months, I was starting again, but I had this big old knee brace on, and I wasn't the same.
Okay.
Right? I wasn't the same, but finished the year. We were terrible. I played terrible, but I learned a lot, and I rehabbed again. And then by the time my junior year, I was smarter, I was faster, I was quicker, and I had that pain, all that doubt caused me to really increase my capacity for working.
Mm-hmm.
So I worked my tail off. I busted my butt. And I remember it was in the springtime, and we typically do like testing, right?
Mm-hmm.
You do all your lifting and your speed work and your agility training. And I remember, man, it was one day down in Eugene in April, and it was a sunny day, beautiful. And I felt different. I felt just explosive. And I remember, we was running 40s,
Okay.
right? And I ended up running a 40.
That's a 40-yard dash, right?
40-yard dash, yeah. 40-yard
yeah.
dash, and which is like that's the hallmark of athletic development, or
Mm-hmm.
if you can make it to the pros or not. It's how fast your 40 is. And I remember getting my stance and then, exploding.
Okay.
And I finished, and it felt like nothing. Felt like butter. Felt like, when you hit I don't know if you play golf.
A little bit.
Dr. David, I get up in there, and I know when I hit a ball,
and
it just, you don't feel nothing, just
that
feel
sweet
pure,
spot. Yeah, the sweet spot.
That's what that 40-yard dash felt like. It felt sweet. And come to find out, it was a 4.32.
Okay.
So I ran a 4.32, and then also, like, just a couple of minutes later, I jumped to vertical, and my vertical was 41.5. And all those, if you know football, those are NFL numbers.
Okay.
not just NFL numbers, those are like first round numbers. And so that gave me confidence that I really needed, because remember the previous year, I stunk it up. I wasn't that good, but I worked my butt off, watched a lot of film. Now I have this athleticism and a newer way of thinking and learning and picking up the game of football, where now the game slowed down, and I had a phenomenal year. So that after that year, I was like, wow, I can play in the NFL. Matter of fact, I can leave right now. And the projections came out like third round, and I was like, I'm better than third round. Nothing to say third round is beautiful. My son drafted third round, but I just knew my capabilities. Like I knew I felt very strong that I was the best corner, period.
Okay.
And so if you're the best corner, you're going to be drafted in the first round. And so end up, having a phenomenal year. My senior year, we did some great things as a team, but also personally. And yeah, that dream came true.
Wow. I want to say something about when you say you had that injury. A lot of people, especially athletes, of course, because that's the context here. Sometimes you get an injury, sometimes it's very severe. And some people will cash in the chips when that injury comes because they get down and they get, maybe mentally out of it. But oftentimes talk about when people come back, those are what we call defining moments, and I say that because there's an old saying, when a defining moment comes, either you define the moment or the moment is going to define you. And you have to take the experience that comes, but allow it to make you better, or to push you towards who you're supposed to come. So you didn't allow that injury to keep you from, becoming that athlete. And so that's really commendable. So you played football, and I know, after your career, I know you focused on leadership, and we're going to talk about that a little later. But I always feel that whatever we do in life, we learn lessons from that. So whatever we become later, we can pull lessons out of our experiences. And so what did football teach Alex Molden about leadership?
Well, I tell you what, it taught me a lot.
Okay.
It taught me a lot about what leadership really is.
Okay.
Because people, they hear leadership and they think it's just all positive.
Right.
And just like, with football, and I had to really found the foundational principles when I looked it up in encyclopedia. I had to do the same thing with leadership. So when you boil leadership down, I'm really good with, I've become better and boil things down so my 8-year-old can understand it.
Okay.
Leadership is influence. Now, no, I didn't say good influence. I said it's influence, because many of us are influenced. We are influenced by negative things, or it can lead us down the wrong path.
Okay.
It's not just about going, following a leader, going down the right path or doing positive things. A lot of times with peer pressure, it can lead us down the wrong path. We're being led by someone who might have, positive or good relationships, or make us feel a certain way. That's why we do a lot of the bad things or the negative things, is because of how we feel, which is the most powerful influencer.
Right.
Right. Remember back in the day, if somebody stepped on your shoes or bumped into you, and then your homeboys, but oh man, you gonna let them do that? They are leading you.
Right.
Right. So football really taught me that there's different ways how to lead. There's the position, right? My coach, he is in the position of leadership. So me being a player, if I want to play, and I'm going to play, well, I need to listen to that man, because he has all the keys. But even deeper is relational. Right. Relational leadership, right? Because if that coach, if we build that relationship, that will trump the position, right? That will trump it. There's coaches that I would run through this brick wall right here. I would run through it, because of the relationship that we've had, that we've built over the years. Right? It's not just because he's in a position of but the relationship. So learning how to decipher which ones and then now how to use it, right? Because I've had bad coaches who've been in that position, but let something go wrong and see how they act. Do they treat me the same? Or do they ignore me? Even though I had a coach that if we won, no matter how I play, I could have played terrible. And there was games, I gave up a touchdown or two. And we still won. He's like, oh man, Alex, man, hey, that's okay, man. We'll bounce back. Hey, but we won. You did a great job. I didn't do a great job. What are you talking about? But then there was other times where we lost and I played lights out, or the whole secondary played lights out. And that same coach would ignore us. He would treat us like we had the plague. Like, how did that make me feel? Hey, man, I did my job. It's a team sport.
Right.
But you're going to ignore me? So, I've learned a lot. And you can learn a ton from the negative things that come up in your life, the people or whatnot, the situations. It doesn't always have to be positive. It doesn't always have, now it works. You know what I'm saying? Like when something is modeled and you're smart enough to decipher, it's like, okay, yeah, I'm going to do that. Or you can break the cycle and do things, the negative cycle, you can break that and go positive.
Right. So let me ask you this, because, and I agree with you 100% that you can learn from both negative and positive experiences. But sometimes people only look at positive experiences, say, I'm learning. How would you encourage someone? What insight would you give someone to really understand that you should look at all experiences, both positive and negative, and really know that you're learning regardless of what's happening?
Absolutely. Great question. So yeah, because you can learn from the positive and the negative things. It always starts with like, what do you want this to do for you? Where do you want to go? So I can take those negative things that happen in my life when, I'm being raised by my dad, who's a drill sergeant.
Okay.
And so, back in the day, dad being in the military and that culture, there wasn't a whole bunch of warm hugs and kisses and son, I love you.
Yeah, I know about that.
It wasn't like that.
And that's not easy. Dad. That's not easy for a lot of Black men. You know that, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So, I didn't get a whole bunch of that. Now, yeah, but I knew he loved me. He provided for me. He did all these things, but that just wasn't, his dad passed away when he was 11.
Okay.
So just understanding, the makeup of people and the culture that, okay, I see that. I don't want that. I want it to be, I saw a vision for, myself, my wife, my kids, is I want them, yeah, they know, but I'm just going to remind them, I'm going to go above. I'm going to do a little bit more to make sure they know it. And so just like anything else, if you want to get good at it, you got to practice at it. Sometimes we practice the wrong things or we're not intentional. Now I'm intentional about having a great relationship. Even though I'm in a position of being a father, I want to make sure that relationship is there. So I make sure, like I tell them every time they leave me on the phone or in person, I tell them I love them. They know it.
Yeah.
But I just, as a reminder, same thing with my wife. I make sure she knows. You know what I'm saying? So it's being more intentional about it. And we all have the capabilities to do it, to be more intentional.
You're right. We do have to be more intentional, because here's what I hear you saying about, having a leadership aspect, and leadership has many different roles. because you mentioned some of them. There's a on the field role to leadership. Then there's a family role, husband and father and all those different kinds of things. And you really have to have a sense that you have an assignment on your life to lead those around you. And I think that's why you're saying the things that you're saying is because what happens if you don't say to your wife, I love you? What happens if you don't, tell your children what they mean to you? Then you're really not leading. Am I right about that? You're not really leading unless you're stepping forward and then taking on the responsibilities that you need to have. And obviously you've learned that well, and it seems like you understand it. So you therefore continue to lead in all aspects of your life.
You know what? I think it's like being intentional.
Okay.
Because because I learned like what I did, how I did not want to parent like my dad parented me. He was a good father. Right. I learned a ton from him. I learned like, okay, that way I'm going to go this way. Okay. If he's going to tell me, son, why are you playing football? You're never going to be good at it. Wow. I'm going to go the other way.
Okay.
And tell my son, hey, if you want to play this game, it can do some phenomenal things for you, but it takes a certain type of character. Are you willing to turn into that character? Right? Because character is just who you are. Right. So I learned, and I also learned this, is that I know how to model. If I model and I know it sticks, if my kids see me when I come in the house and I hug my wife and I give her a big old kiss, and I do it every day, that models, oh, that's how I'm supposed to treat my wife.
That's right.
Or my girl, or my daughters. I have 3 daughters. I want them to know, like, you are supposed to be treated like this. How do I show them? Your boyfriend or future husband supposed to treat you like this, supposed to talk to you like this, right? So it's just being intentional, especially as parents. As parents, we have so much power, so much power. I mean, to this day, I'm still, I get emotional when it comes to conflict. Because I didn't want it. Some terrible things happened in my life where I witnessed that from my parents, conflict. And now I try to avoid it. Now I'm still working on that, because sometimes I avoid conflict, with my wife by, I don't leave. I do something worse. I lie.
Okay.
Little white lies, but those are damaging. And I finally had to look in the mirror. It was like, man, why do I do that? And that's just a trigger for me back when I was a little 8-9-year-old, and I saw conflict, and it made me feel a certain way, right? Intuition is a powerful influencer. So I tried all to avoid it, unless I was on a football field. That was my escape. That was my, I love conflict now. That was my escape.
Sure.
So, but we all have that in us to be able to turn things. We can change.
That's right.
Hopefully we're changing, for the better.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I want to ask you something, because I've heard you speak about something that happened with you. And I want you to tell the story about one of your coaches. And you learned this lesson. And, everyone, whether it's being a public speaker like you are, or something that you learn as you're playing, everyone needs something like a foundation. And I'll use this word, like a mantra to live by. And once you find that mantra, life begins to kind of formulate for you. And then you get purpose and direction. And you have this mantra that you say, publicly, but it's also in your book. And we'll talk a little bit about that. 3 words: assignment, alignment, and adjustments. I want you to talk about that. Talk about the coach, where you got it from. How did that help you? Because that's your mantra. And I believe that has helped you to have the purpose and the direction that you needed for life.
Absolutely. Thank you. Well, there's different people that come into your life. God puts different people in your life. And for me, it was Coach Willie Shaw. And so he coached me with the New Orleans Saints. He was my second year. And Coach Shaw was a veteran NFL coach. He had a lot of success wherever he went. Like, he always would have guys got a lot of interceptions and, had great careers and whatnot. And so my chance with him was in 1997. And he was our DB coach. And I remember, like, our first time meeting, it was during practice or mini camp, which typically happens right after the draft. And I know I had a new coach, and we went on the field, we practiced, he talked a little bit, but it wasn't a whole bunch of words when we got into like our different periods, team periods or whatnot. He just kind of watched. And I remember, like, after practice, we was walking into the locker room, and I remember him saying, hey, 25, that's my number, 25, 25, come over here for a second. So I said, okay, I ran over there and said, yeah, coach. He said, hey, Alex, you want to play a long time in this league? I said, yeah, I want to play a long time, because I'm thinking, you play a long time, you get multiple contracts.
That's right.
You get multiple contracts. That's money, right?
Uh-huh.
So I'm like, yeah, I want to play a long time. And he said, you got to understand these three things: assignment, alignment, and adjustment. He said, half the time, Alex, you're out there and you didn't know your assignment. I was like, what? I know my, no, beyond, you didn't know your assignment, like the whole play. Oh, okay, yeah, it must. And he said, if you want to play a long time, you want to have success, you got to know everybody else's assignment.
Wow.
So I got to dive deeper into the playbook. Mm-hmm. Yeah. You need to know everybody's role, everybody's job. Okay, check. The second thing he said, your alignment. Your alignment, you was 50-50. Sometimes you were supposed to align outside, you aligned inside. You're supposed to be at 3 yards off, you're 5 yards off. You're supposed to be 8 yards, you're at 5. You was misaligned half the time. He said, you're going up against some of the best athletes on earth. You can't give them any type of advantage. And half the time you're giving them advantage, you're beat before the ball is even snapped.
Wow.
You need to be aligned correctly every time. Be consistent. Okay, so be more mindful of where I line up at.
Mm-hmm.
And then last thing, he said adjustment. You need to be ready to adjust. It was like watching you adjust. It was like, man, you were late. You wasn't thinking ahead. Said is that they don't just line up and hike the ball. They shift, they motion, they audible, they do all these things to try to get an advantage. You need to be ready to make adjustments. And so I followed that. I followed that mantra. Like, I remember that conversation. That happened over 20 years ago, that conversation. Wow. And I mean, I still, like, it was so foundational.
Okay.
And that was one of the reasons I had an 8-year career instead of a 3.5, which is the average.
Okay.
It wasn't because I was fast. I wasn't running 4.32 when I was 30 years old.
Exactly.
And so for me, since that gave me so much success on the field, I took that off the field.
Okay.
And I wish I would have learned how to do that sooner rather than later. But for me, it happened on a job interview.
Okay.
So job interview, I'm 3 years removed from the NFL, got money in the bank, luxury cars, multiple houses, beautiful family. And I end up going on this job interview because I'm tired of playing golf. Dr. David, I don't know if you ever get tired of playing golf. I never thought that sounds like,
you must have been bored when you get tired of playing golf.
Tired of playing golf, tired of working out. I want to do something. I want to do something.
Sure.
And I end up seeing this job as an entry level. I didn't care. I just want to get out the house. It's cool driving the kids to school and helping out in the classroom, but there's got to be more purpose, right? I applied for this job, entry level, at this nonprofit. got an interview, went in there, and I did my homework. I did all that, and answered the questions in the interview process, and end up the lady started asking me questions I never heard before, deeper questions.
Okay.
Like, so what drives you, Alex? Alex, what's your goals in life? What's your purpose? What keeps you up at night? What wakes you up? And I kept saying, I don't know. I don't know. And finally she said, Alex, sweetie, she's an older Black lady. She said, sweetie, honey, I'm going to stop this interview. You're not going to get this job. Job was like, I don't know, 50K, 55, something like that. You're not going to get this job. And let me give you a little bit of advice. She said, before you go on any more job interviews, you need to find out exactly who you are. Okay. She got up, she walked me out the building. I went to my car and I cried my eyes out. It was a SL 500 Mercedes.
Watering it down, right?
Peanut butter interior. I'm banging my hands on the steering wheel.
Oh man.
Now, I've been cut before.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like
sure.
I've been
if you're
fired.
an athlete, you've been cut.
Yeah, I've been cut. The job.
Yeah.
The GM says, hey, your services are no longer needed.
Sure.
We got a plane ticket for you. Have a nice life.
Wow.
And that's embarrassing to get security guards to walk you down into your locker. They give you a black plastic bag and you bag up all your stuff, and then you walk out the building. Right. And they close the door. That's embarrassing. There was nothing like being embarrassed like that. Somebody who just met me looked deep into my soul and said, I don't know who I was.
Wow.
And she was right.
She was right.
And so I tell that story because I was lost. In that moment in my car, I didn't know who I was. People think that money can make you happy. Things can make you happy. You can have all those things. But if you don't know who you are and you don't know what your purpose is, you will be lost, and it's not a great feeling. I stayed in that moment I wish I could say it happened right away. It took a couple of years to figure out what gave me success on the football field can be applied to off the field. So I started looking at my life. What's my assignment? What's my purpose? Like, what does keep me up at night? What does wake me up? And for me, it was helping others, service. Wow. I want to help other athletes become the best version of themselves. So I started to, get into the training world. And I started to learn. I ended up coming up here to Portland. My wife is from here. We went to University of Oregon.
Okay.
I got a job at Nike World Headquarters, training athletes.
Wow.
Like business people, executives, but also athletes, the Nike athletes that come on campus. I started training them. Okay. I was able to travel the world.
Wow.
I went to Paris twice. I went to Taiwan, been all over LA, Atlanta on Nike's dime. Found my purpose. Alignment, right?
Right.
How do I align my life? And so I had to ask myself these different questions. And when I look at it, how do I align? What's important to me? And when I was playing ball, it was my career came first. That was my foundation. Then it was my family. Then it was my faith. And I wasn't living, for me, I felt there was just discomfort. I'm doing all these things, and, in my career, even when I was training, I'm doing all these things, but I'm not enjoying. I'm not like, I'm doing all these cool things, flying all over and meeting some cool, I'm training like Russell Westbrook.
Yeah.
Some phenomenal athletes. Mm-hmm. And it didn't feel right. So I started to go, okay, but I wasn't raised in the church, but I think faith should be my foundation because my career can be gone. The football, right. I played 8 years.
Sure.
And that's a long time. That don't mean it's going to be there forever. Right? My family.
That's right.
My mom and dad are divorced.
Okay.
You know, it's still a family, but it's broken. So if I put my faith first, then my family, and then my career, where can this go?
Mm.
And I need to make those adjustments. I need to make adjustment in my character, because for me, that platform of playing in the NFL, being a professional athlete, that was the top, right? Everybody looks up to that. I'm signing autographs and all those type of things. But my character was being shielded from that platform. People were not worried about my character.
Mm.
Oh man, his platform and his abilities, all those things, right? So then when the game, football, NFL, when that was no longer there to protect me, to protect my character, because I was very transactional.
Okay.
You know, I do something for you, you do something for me.
Right.
I wasn't worried about making relationships. I got enough of those. When I started to work on my character and where did I want my character, I knew how to be a football player, but what about being a better father, better husband, all these things. So I need to make an adjustment in my character first, and then also how I communicated.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't want to talk to people because
Okay.
they wanted something from me. I was hung in the back. Now, man, I'm very like intentional with meeting people and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
So there's different adjustments that I needed to make in my character, and you know how I communicate, how I share things. So, but that was the formula for me. And now, you know, what I'm doing is I share messages.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like I coach people. I coach people to not just be better athletes. I love that. And that at one point, but I've changed, and now I help people become better leaders. I help people become better people.
Absolutely. And I mean, that's a great story. But I want to go here because you interjected your faith into the conversation. And I know, but then you said that you didn't grow up in the church, but you found your faith at some point, and maybe after you became a professional. I do know that not necessarily a whole lot, but I do know one or two stories of athletes after reaching the highest of heights, and like you say, having all the money you want, but then there's this emptiness on the inside, and then you come to have a relationship with Christ, and then things begin to focus, and then you start understanding purpose. So it's really what salvation is supposed to do. It's supposed to bring you into focus with God. And so you've already talked to you brought up your story, and what would you say about that relationship with God that you now have, and how have you shared that, especially in your with the people you know? And it may not necessarily be while you're on stage doing your public speaking, you may not necessarily using Bible scriptures or promote it. You might, I don't know, but I know it's a foundation. And so just talk about that experience of now stepping up forward and knowing that you are a representative of God.
Well, that's the big thing, is like when I talk about my foundation,
Mm-hmm.
and not saying that my foundation is the best for everybody.
Right. Yeah.
Because that's how I live my life.
Right.
Other people live their life another way, but me, I've been on the other side.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen like what it feels like to have to put everything on your career.
Right.
And everything else is like secondary.
Mm-hmm.
I lived on that side. Like I've been like having all money and just not even thinking about finances. And then I remember like signing my rookie contract. And I remember getting my house, buying my mom a car, her house, my brother a car, my house, and getting it decorated, spending $75,000 on decorations.
Mm.
And going and have like the luxury cars in the garage. And I remember sitting on the couch thinking I've made it.
Mm.
Success. And that lasted for about 1 minute. Wow. And then I was like, this is empty. I don't feel like I was thinking, you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't feel like And at that moment, like God was no longer, there was another story I tell that, when I blew out my knee.
Okay.
I blew out my knee. I was in the hospital, and there was, I can't remember exactly what evangelist was on TV, but I was watching it and I felt like, man, God was whispering to me because I wasn't walking with the Lord.
Mm.
But that stillness, that quiet time, I was down in the dumps. My knee, all my dreams on jeopardy. And I'm looking at this evangelist, talking about coming to Christ and what Jesus does and what he can do for me. And I was like, I was whispering. At that moment, at the height, what I was thinking the height was, God was no longer whispering. He was yelling at me, come follow me, follow me. Because I've sent down here and up here, right? The low of the low and the high of the high, I thought. And I felt empty. And so that moment started me in my walk with Jesus Christ.
Beautiful, beautiful. And, we have to share the message at, every opportunity. And I love what you said, because sometimes we have the mindset that we have to force the religion on everybody, just, what's for you, what works for you. You share it in the ways and that you do, and and you're reflecting the Christ that's in you. And I really think that's very powerful, a powerful way to get the message of Christ out. As we get ready to close, I always ask my guests a question, because the name of our show is called Beyond the Culture, and how to, embrace change and challenge cultural norms and ideals. So I want to ask you, with all that you do, how have you, challenged any norms, any traditions, and you have embraced the sense that some things need to be changed. So how would Alex Molden say that he have embraced change and challenged the norms?
That's a good question. I think it with anything is you got to ask, like, why?
Okay.
Why is it like this? Why does music, especially in our community, the Black culture, why does music tear down other Blacks? Why does it tear down women? Why? What can I do to change that? The culture of sports. I don't I hate watching ESPN and seeing the different athletes, these guys who are on this platform, this huge platform, which they think that they are above the law or above anything. Like, why do they do that? And it's because they've understanding what influence is. And there's different influencers. A lot of us are influenced by the relationships instead of what I think is the most important, or they're influenced by intuition, how they feel, or how they can make others feel. They're influenced by relationships, but I think the biggest thing is they should be influenced by somebody's character.
Absolutely.
So I'm really, but it starts at home. So it starts at home. Like my kids, you take accountability for everything. Everything. It's not nobody else's fault. It's yours. It's your fault. So I just try to think about the culture that I want to have in my house. Like we talked about it. Like I hug my wife. I want them to see that. So then now they know how to they see it modeled. How can they go out there and that becomes a part of the culture that they're in? You build people up. How does that become a part of their culture? Just like anything else, practice it daily, no matter how you feel.
I heard somebody say the other day, don't practice till you get it right. Practice until you don't get it
Get
wrong.
it wrong. That's right.
And you have to. That's really what modeling is all about. Practice, 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 showing just how to do it. And Alex, talking to you today has been, a pleasure of mine, and having you on the show. And but before we close, I just want you to just give our audience how we can talk. And I do want to mention your book again. It's called The Ultimate Playbook for High Achievers, 11 Keys for Success in Sport and Life. You also have a podcast. The podcast is not the Shark Tank, but it's the Shark Effect.
The Shark Effect.
The Shark Effect with Alex Molden. And you can hear that on all podcast platforms, Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast. But Alex, how can this audience connect with you on social media?
Thank you very much. So my website is just www.alexmolden.com, ALEXMOLDEN. So my book, just go to alexmolden.com. That shows you everything. And then on social media, everything is at Alex Molden, whether it's Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. I try to simplify, you know what I'm saying? I try to simplify.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Some people you can't find because they got like 4 names, right?
No, I just try to keep it simple.
But that's good. So Alex, listen, I want to thank you for taking time out to be on the show. And I really appreciate you because you're a man of God. You got a message, and something that I say to all of my guests who come on the show: you have gone beyond the culture. And I want to thank you for being with us today.
Thank you for Dr. David. Keep doing what you're doing. You're impacting our culture. And I love to connect and link up with people who have that in them to change things for the better. Yes. So thank you for reaching out to me. We're going to stay connected. I'm going to send you my book.
Yes, thank you.
But thank you so much, man. I greatly appreciate it.
Well, thank you for being on the show, and we'll talk soon.
Sounds good.
All right, take care. Now, if you want to continue to hear inspiring interviews like the one you heard today, I want you to subscribe to this podcast on iTunes, Spotify, or your favorite streaming platform. Also, rate the show, and please leave a comment. I would also love it if you would share this podcast with your friends to let them know that we're on. Finally, you can email me at beyondtheculturepodcast@gmail.com. I'd love to hear from you. This is your host, Dr. David M. Walker, and we'll talk again on Beyond the Culture. Take care.